Now, let's talk about something that I've never said out loud quite like this. I used to be afraid of being seen. Now, if you are looking at me from the outside, you would never know that. And the reason is because the fear, it did not look like fear. It did not look like I was hiding. It did not look like I was even trying to run away. It looked like inconsistency. I would show up for a few days and I would show up very strong. I would be consistent. I would be full of energy. And then I would disappear. I would disappear sometimes for weeks, sometimes months. And then I would come back and repeat the same thing. Be consistent for a couple of days, couple of weeks, be strong, full of energy, and then I would disappear again. And I did this on and off, on and off, and on and off for years. And the funny thing is that I had a reason every single time. And it was a very good reason, a really valid reason. And that is exactly how the fear was working for me. Now, let me explain what I mean, because I think a lot of people, they think that fear of visibility, it looks like one thing. It looks like someone who refuses to put themselves out there, or someone who says, I am too scared. I cannot do this. I don't feel like I'm ready. But that is not always how the fear of visibility shows up. Sometimes it is much quieter than that. And sometimes it shows up as I did not plan my content ahead of time. I don't want to show up just to show up. I do not want to send the wrong messages if I show up. I need more time to prepare, or I will start when I have a better strategy. So you remain in this planning mode, and the planning, it never quite turns into doing. And one day becomes 1 week becomes 1 month, and 1 month becomes 3 months. And then you look up one day and you realize just like that, 3 months have passed and you have nothing to show for them. And the question that you end up asking yourself when this happened is, what in the world was I doing all this time? And the answer is not satisfying because the answer is not honest. The honest answer is I was hiding in plain sight behind very reasonable excuses. And here's what I figured out about myself. I was not disorganized. I was not lazy. I was not even bad at planning. I was making sure that I always had an excuse ready. And the excuse was always a valid one. It was always a reasonable one that I could always say out loud because I know that nobody could argue with it. Because if the reason I do not show up was completely valid, then I never had to face the real reason. And that real reason was the fear. And that fear would express itself in questions like, what if I show up and nobody cares? What if I show up and people judge me? What if I show up and I'm not good enough? The excuses that I had ready, they protected me from having to find out the answers to those questions. And I just let it. And for a very long time, I let it. And here is what that on and off pattern costs you. Because I want to be specific about this. While you are in planning mode and you're comfortable there, life is not in planning mode. Other people are not in planning mode. The person who started at the same time you were supposed to start is not in planning mode. She's posting, she is building, she is showing up, and she is getting the feedback. And that same feedback, if you were showing up, would make you better. And you end up watching her getting the breakthroughs that you told yourself that were coming for you too. just not yet. And then the gap between you and her, it gets wider and wider. And it's not because she is more talented, not because she is more qualified, but because she showed up and you did not. And the painful part is that you know that deep down inside, you know that the reason it was not the planning, the reason was the fear. And so now you end up carrying two things. You're carrying the fear of being seen and the weight of all the time that you spent not being seen. And neither of them feel good. So here's what changed for me. I had to change the way that I saw visibility, and I had to be honest about accountability, because I used to think that accountability was something that was outside of yourself. You join a group and everybody's doing the same thing and you keep each other accountable. Or you find a partner to keep yourself accountable. You hire someone, or you create a system that forces you to show up. And look, there is absolutely nothing wrong with communities. There is nothing wrong with finding people who are doing the same thing that you are doing. That can absolutely help. But here's the truth that I had to sit with. No one can keep you accountable but you. No one can force you to do what you have not decided that you want to do. And the moment that I really understood that, I stopped outsourcing the accountability and I started owning it. And here's what helped me get there. I looked at my own life and then I realized something that I always knew, but I never said out loud. I already know how to be accountable, and I prove it every single day. Hear me out. If you have a job right now or any form of consistent income that requires you to show up, you already know how to be consistent. Because think about it. You show up to that job or you do that thing that brings you the consistent income, whether you feel like it or not, whether you slept well or not, whether you're inspired or not, whether the conditions are perfect or not, you show up because you know what happens if you do not show up. If you stop showing up and you do that enough times, you end up losing the income. And losing that income, it also means losing real things. You lose the car payment, you lose the rent, you lose the ability to feed yourself or feed your children. So you show up, and you show up consistently, reliably, without anyone having to remind you. That is accountability, and you already have it. The only difference between how you show up for that job and how you show up for yourself is who you are being accountable to. Because at your job, you are accountable to someone else's dream, someone else's vision, someone else's income, and someone else's timeline. And you show up for it every single time. But ask yourself, what would happen if you put that same energy toward your own? What would happen if you took yourself as seriously as your employer takes you? What would happen if you all of a sudden moved yourself to the top of your own priority list? You do not need someone to make you accountable. You just need a reason that is greater than the reason you show up for someone else every single day. And only you can find that reason. I want to leave you with something. I saw a clip once that I have not been able to stop thinking about. A man walks into a job interview, and the job was paying around $45,000 a year. And the interviewer looks at his resume and pauses, and he sees on his resume culinary school, an internship in Paris, and that internship was a prestigious program. And he also saw years of real training. And he looks up and says, I do not understand why you're here. Your resume tells a completely different story from the job you are applying for. So I have one question for you. How much did they pay you? And the guy looks at him, he's like, I don't understand. What do you mean? He's like, how much did they pay you to give up on your dreams? I sat with that question for a long time because I recognized myself in it. And not because I had given up entirely, but because I kept showing up for things that were not mine with a consistency that I could not seem to give to the things that were mine. And I had to ask myself the same question. Is what this job is paying me enough for me to keep putting myself last? And is it enough? Is it enough to keep postponing my dreams? Is it enough to keep putting myself at the bottom of my priority list? Is it enough to keep planning without doing, to keep finding perfect excuses for why today is never the right day? For me, the answer was no. So I want to ask you the same thing. If you are someone who shows up consistently, reliably, day after day for someone else's dream, but for some reason you cannot seem to find that same consistency for your own, I want you to ask yourself, how much are they paying you to give up on your dreams? How much are they paying you to give up on yourself? And is it enough? Because here's what I know. You do not need a new skill to start. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need someone to hold you accountable. You just need to decide that you are worth the same consistency that you give to everyone else. That's it. Just that decision. And then you show up. And I say this all the time, you do not have to show up perfectly. You do not have to always show up with a great idea, and not when conditions are ideal either, but you show up the same way that you show up for everything else, because it matters and because you matter. So I'm Webley. I am a launch and funnel strategist. And if this video hits something real, I want you to hit subscribe, because this is the kind of honest conversation we have here every single day. And I want you to drop a comment below and tell me, what is the reason that is bigger than the reason you show up for someone else? Tell me, because I want to read every single one of your answers. And with that, I will see you in the next video.